next up, we're going to go a little bit off the board compared to what we've talked about and talk about something that's a little bit old news, but I think the conversation itself is still very current, and that's on over and it starts off with NBA reffing, but it can definitely be expanded to all sports for sure. Do you want ref stats? Do you want to be able to look at stats on your screen when you're watching whatever sport, NFL, NBA, NHL, and be able to tell how often they call penalties, how often they throw passer interference calls, how often they're calling fouls? Do you want to know these things? Because it was a conversation that was brought up by Stephen Curry back in February, and I think it's still a very interesting conversation to have. His exact quote was that he wants to see a ref grading system, and he wants it to be more public and shown more on a nightly basis, just like how their stats, as in the players, are shown every single night, every time they shoot a free throw, every time they do an ISO shot, right, on the camera, right, where they're showing Steph Curry on the screen and he's averaging 21 points, 5 assists, and oh, he missed 10 threes the night before, right? Like, what he's basically saying is that he wants to start seeing that for referees. So, Caleb, what do you think on that idea as a whole? Do you want to see that in the NBA? Do you want to see that as maybe a more widespread thing? What do you think about it?
I think it's tricky because I think there's some unofficial type things that we've seen similar to this. One thing that I've seen personally is in the MLB. Sometimes you'll go on Twitter after a particularly important playoff game or the World Series or whatever, and I'll see like umpire report cards getting thrown around where you can see how they called the strike zone versus like how accurate they were, how many calls did they miss, how impactful were those calls, how much did it alter the game. Stuff like that is really cool to see in terms of like, well, did this actually have an impact on the game? Like, we can quantify this. The one thing that I think is a little bit more difficult in terms of implementing something like what Curry is talking about for some other sports, whether it's the NBA, whether it's the NHL, whether it's the NFL, is a lot of the calls they make are very subjective, and a lot of them are very much like, like you'll go to in the NFL when you're calling pass interference. There's a reason they scrapped the whole video review process of it, because it's so subjective that even when you slow it down and even when you try to get a definitive version to say, well, this is right and this is wrong, a lot of the times you can't get people to say, like a called ball or strike, oh, this is clearly inside the strike zone, this is clearly outside the strike zone. So it's something that I think it's good anytime you have accountability, anytime you have a metric to say like, okay, well, these people are doing their jobs, these people aren't. How do we fix that? I think it's something that you'd have to get creative with in terms of like how you actually implement it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it has to be done the right way because of the fact that I imagine refs probably don't want that. Like, I don't think they want to be graded on every little thing. NBA, or not, I just said NBA. MLB umpires probably already don't like report cards being thrown all over the place. Hell, I wouldn't want my report card being thrown all over the place. Like, I think, like, it's fair. People don't want that type of thing public. I think the big difference, though, is I'm just doing shit in math, and they're blowing it in the Stanley Cup Finals, right? That's the big difference. And I think, I personally think it'd be pretty cool. I think it'd be a good way. I don't know if the NBA or any of these leagues do that privately. I hope they do, right? Because I hope that there's some way to check how these refs are doing. Like, I hope there's somebody in the back, like, actually tracking and going, okay, you're doing a bad job, we won't bring you back next year. Oh, this guy's doing pretty good, we'll give him more important games, right? I hope there's somebody doing that, and I'm sure there is, but because that's just how most jobs are. But I wouldn't mind that being public. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think it would just add more. As we've seen the game, all of these games evolve, we've seen more advanced stats being added to a lot of these sports. I could see it fitting in even just as that. Maybe it's not something you see on your TV. Maybe it's not something that the broadcasters are talking about. But if you look it up and you want them, they're there, right? But if you look it up right now, like trying to find stats for Joe Blow and his performance in the Warriors game taking on the Bucks, you're not going to find it. You're not going to find how many fouls like he called per over average or whatever. Like whatever stat you want to find, that doesn't exist. So in that sense, like if that was the goal, I'd be okay with that. But maybe, in my opinion, I don't know if you necessarily need it on the broadcast. I feel like maybe that's a little overkill. I feel like that would just lead to a lot of refs getting a lot of hate. And I also don't even know how you would do that gracefully. Would you just throw up a little graphic afterwards after a ref fucks up a call and just goes, "Oops"? like how do you even manage that?
Yeah, that's the danger of it, right? Is I don't think most reasonable fans will look at refs and say they deserve more hate. It's like they're not getting enough scrutiny. Like, like we're sports fans, we get mad at the refs, like that's part of the gig. But I think deep down we all recognize like they are all human. They're trying their best, and I'm sure that it's a large part of what makes it such a hard profession is that inevitably, no matter how good of a ref you are, or no matter how hard you try to get every single call right, you are inevitably going to fuck it up at some point, because that's the human error part of it. And so to kind of get that put under a microscope, that is the hard part of it. The one thing I will say that is the flip side of it is I think what Curry talks a little bit more about is the rewarding good performance aspect of it. And I think that could be something that would be a potential positive of implementing something like this.
If they have like a 90% correct like rating, they get a fruit basket.
Yeah. Well, not even that. It's just like to show to the general public to say, well, this person did a really good job and like got all of their calls. Like, for example, with the MLB report cards thing, I remember seeing a couple where it was like 100% correct called game, and people were like popping off in the comments, like celebrating the good game that the ump had. Or it's like that's something you never see in sport is people celebrating. Because most of the time, the ref is like an offensive lineman where it's like if they do their job and they have a really great game, you don't notice that they're there. Whereas maybe they need to get some recognition.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I agree with that. I feel like a lot of the times they do need to get the recognition, but I don't think that's what this would be used for. I think that's a very
optimistic reading of it.
Yes, that is exactly what it is. I think it's very optimistic. Holy, can you tell we're recording this at 11 p.m.? I think it's a very optimistic way to look at it. I don't think sports fans would handle it that way. I don't think I'd handle it that way. I'd probably be going like, why do we have a guy who's got a 70% accuracy rating doing our game? Like, how did we end up with this guy? Because you look at that as a fan and you go like, I don't want him. I want the guy over there who's got a 90% because he's killing it. And, the hope is that it would encourage refs to be even better, right? It would add a little bit more. I don't know if refs need more pressure.
No, that's the thing. Is that
I don't know if they need more pressure, but it would add more pressure to be good. There's more of a spotlight. Again, maybe you don't need more.
But I don't think refs miss calls necessarily because they're negligent. I think they miss calls because they're human and they miss calls, or they have a different view on it. Like that's not what it is, and that's why I think adding like replay elements to sports and adding that to reffing is a way to make it a lot better. In terms of like, okay, we can go and we can slow it down, and a lot of those in the moment mistakes can be ironed out. Another thing that I think really works in reffing's favor is increased transparency, and I wonder if that's a way where you don't necessarily need to have stats to say, okay, this was good and this was bad, but just to like provide a window into the process, the decision making in terms of how that is done, to kind of get that like connection, to say, okay, why was this call made? What are the steps that went into making this decision? Like the UFL, the Spring League does this, where anytime there is a challenge on the field or there is a video review, the command center is all mic'd up. Everybody in the command center, you get to see the entire process of that decision. And I've found, even in just my small time watching that sport and judging the like social media reaction to it, the community reaction to it, I found people were going a lot easier on some of the referees' decisions because you can actually be in the room with them to say, oh, like, I actually understand this a little bit more, versus just going to commercial for 4 minutes and then they come out and they've made a decision that hurts your favorite team and you're like, well, fuck you. Like,
and I will say,
it's a different process.
And I think that's why, like, in the NFL, you have, and it's a thing in MMA as well, where you get the, I don't even know what their title would be, but it'd be like the reffing expert, where they're trying to talk about a call and they're like, oh, hey, Dave, you used to be a ref in the NFL for 14 years. What are you thinking, right? And I think when you bring in a guy like that who can explain it, I think that adds a lot. I think that does a lot for the refs. I think that I agree with you. I think the UFL absolutely does it right by sticking a camera in that room, because it does allow you to peek behind the curtain and go like that, just see that it's not 10 guys in a room rubbing their hands together going, ooh, this is going to fuck the Maple Leafs. That's not what's happening back there, right? Like, they're doing their best. They're looking at all the angles and they're doing everything they can. And at the end of the day, like, I don't know. I'm saying all these things and emphasizing with refs, knowing full well that I will not be on this side when the Flames lose another goal because it was a millimeter on the goal line. But it's like it's a tough thing. It's a tough conversation to have, right?
Yeah. No, it definitely is, because it's going to be part of sport until we have robo-umps and robo-refs that can call everything 100% perfect. But even then, again, like at the start of the conversation, so much of it is subjective.
Do you want
there's never going to be
or robot refs?
Well, again, I think it depends. Well, I think it depends on the sport, and again, I think there is stuff where you can implement that technology. One of the news items that was probably too small for a segment was one of the rule changes in the NFL, where they're starting to use the Hawkeye technology to measure first downs, where it's like, yeah, that's something that's a pretty obvious, like, it's a yes or no. Did the ball cross the line or did it not? Versus, again, something like pass interference, something like holding, where it's like you can call holding on every play, but should you? Where does that line lie? And so, again, it's a balancing act, and that's the hardest part of being the ref. It's not necessarily these black or white calls. When you miss those are what get the most attention, but the trickiest part of the job is when you have a real tough case on your hands to say, well, I don't know, it could go either way, but based on my knowledge of the rule book, based on my interpretation of it, this is how I believe the play should go, and I'm standing by that. That's the hard part of the job, and that's where I don't think, at least where we are now, who knows where we're going, but that's why I don't think the robot umps or robot refs can replace that aspect of it, and that's also where ref stats is a tricky, if not impossible, thing to implement.
What would even be the stats is also the tough part, right? Like, I've joked with the accuracy thing, right? Because that's the most obvious thing. But again, going back to what you just said there, not every call is black and white. Not everything is this was right, this was wrong. There's some gray. So how do you even, when you're creating that stat, when you're tracking it, how do you even look at those gray calls and fit them into a category? Do you just toss them into a bin? Do you not include that in the number? What do you do, right? It's not like, oh, Ovechkin scored 895 goals. He went off of his stick and the puck went in the net. That's all that happened. It's pretty black and white. That's an easy one, right? It's pretty hard to mess that up. No, it's not. It's not that simple, right? That is the tough thing. So I really don't know. Again, I would hope that the leagues are tracking actual ref stats behind the scenes to make sure that their referees are doing their best job. I would just hope that's happening. So who knows? Maybe that's a question that's already got an answer to it, right? You never know. But regardless, I think the easiest place to do this would be the MLB. We've already seen it. Like you said, You gave a perfect example with those report cards. Because at the end of the day, the difference between their reffing and all the other sports is it is as simple pretty much as a box. It is a box on the screen, and you can look at exactly where the ball landed and look at exactly what the ref said, and that's it. That's pretty black and white. That is a stat that you can have. Like when Angel Hernandez walks onto the screen, you can just go like, oh, Angel Hernandez is only calling 48% of the strikes right this season. Like it's like that's I still think that you'd have a hard time convincing refs to be okay with that, but like at least that is more doable versus in the NHL or NFL where it's like it's very gray. It's a very and NBA. NBA should be grouped in that too because there's so many fouls that are so confusing and they're just like and charges as well. Charges are weird too where like there's so many plays where like it's just so all over the place that I really don't know. I don't know how you track it. I hope that the leagues have an answer to that, but you never know.
I think their answer to it is they have like a league office that goes back and watches the performance and then they give their own judgment on it to say this was the right call or this was the wrong call. But even then, I think that's another just subjective view into it, especially when it is a close call. So again, that's not the answer. I think the answer is, like we've talked about, it's the transparency aspect of it. It's if you want to make a legitimate change to a lot of these reffing systems, a lot of these sports, to say, well, how do we make these refs more accountable? It's not giving a grade to say this ref is an A plus or this ref is a C ref or this ref is a whatever. It's to say make the review process transparent, put cameras in those rooms, put mics on the refs, let us know what they're talking about when they open up that little Microsoft Surface tablet. And then it's also having the refs do a post-game press conference, just like any other player would. Having them and no, but like it's seriously having them give their own view into why they made a call a certain way. It's not something. There's a reason refs don't agree to do that because it places them under additional scrutiny. And do refs need additional scrutiny? Probably not, but who knows? Maybe there are some calls where you're never going to be able to convince fans. But maybe in the long scheme of things, people would be able to watch a post-game press conference and say, "Well, no, like it seems like they're being honest with how they see it. Maybe we can cut them a little slack."
I would hope that people would look at it that way and go, "Well, this guy just spent 10 minutes explaining his side," and go, "Well, while I disagree with it, I see where he's coming from, and that's good. I also know the world we live in and know that would not happen, so." It's probably a good thing that don't exist.
People
seeing another view that isn't theirs and being able to passively disagree. No way.
No.
It's a crazy idea. Can't even believe you'd suggest that.
But at the same time, if I am to keep kind of the optimistic tone of this going, that's going to happen anyways. It does happen anyways.
There you go.
If we put these refs in a protected situation where it's just certain journalists that would be covering the game, maybe don't even include like the partisan team reporters.
Just have
just a couple.
Just like have one dude. His name's Greg, and he just stands there, and he's a very nice, pleasant guy, and he just goes. He starts off by asking all the refs how their day's going, how's the wife and kids. Like,
or maybe we don't even have to have that. We just have to have, you brought this up earlier, where they have a refereeing analyst on like 90% of these broadcast crews. Plug in Gene Steratore to do a quick Zoom interview with the ref after the game, right? It's like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like these ref. No disrespect to the Gene Steratores and the Mike Pereiras and whatever of the world. No offense to them, but they don't really do very much. I mean, like they're on screen for like 2 minutes of the game. Like I don't think adding this to their slate is going to be too much. Like I think that would be an excellent way to use them because I mean they have an insight to it too, and that can be more of an open conversation. And I feel like refs would also be more willing and open to talk to people that they know have also been in their shoes.
Yes,
like
I agree,
don't you think
somebody's
going to open up way more to a Mike Pereira than they are to like Joe Panther from like Florida, like
Joe Panther.
Why'd you fucking
the sickest journalist name ever?
Why'd you call the penalty on Kachuk when he took somebody's head off? Fuck you, like.
Joe Panther is gonna be my professional wrestling name. Oh my god.
I was trying so hard to come up with a name, and it just, I had that in my head for about 5 seconds, and you know, it just I couldn't
10
think
out
of
of
anything
10,
else.
no notes.
It's out there.
Joe Panther. Fuck. Oh, God. You know what? No, I completely disagree. Joe Panther deserves that opportunity. And I will die on my sword for that. Joe Panther.
Joe Panther.
He
Joe
deserves
Panther
the world.
has other opportunities in life. He doesn't need this.
Get
He's
Joe
already winning.
Get Joe Panther on First Take arguing with Stephen A. Smith. That's what I want to see. It's 11 p.m. My brain's fried. Oh, that's great.
Next up, a deep dive into Joe Panther.
Yeah, exactly.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Oh.